made it to Chirohustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channel and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority podcast training. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 355 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your co-host, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. J. Edward Hartley. And if you want to understand how to get into the chiropractic flow state, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. This is number 355. And today we have J. Edward Hartley. And this man is Palmer Chiropractic rugby player. And I'm excited for him to tell this story. And awesome guy. And Palmer rugby lore, they call them the old boys. So it's going to be exciting to have you on today, Jay. He's coming in from St. Augustine, Florida. Luke Millette, my co-host, is coming in from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I, Jim Chester, am coming in from Grand Junction, Colorado. And before we get this party started, I just let everybody know why we do what we do. We support subluxation-based chiropractic. We support innate intelligence, universal intelligence, and we really do protect free speech in chiropractic, and that's something that's very important in the world today, and it's been important since the inception of this profession. And on top of that, we do protect the sacred trust. If you don't know what any of that is, go use your search engines and find that information and help yourself know more about why we do what we do. And without any further, Dr. J, welcome.
Hi, good to be here, Jim.
Yeah, it's a long time coming.
Yeah, I think years ago I did something with you with the Palmer rugby team when you were helping out, helping us spread the word, probably like 10 years ago. But I'm glad to be back on.
Yeah, it's good to be reconnected with somebody like yourself, because I a lot of times interview chiropractors. I have no idea who they are, and we just get like a connection here or there, or I'll go look for interviews. But it's really cool when I can interview guys that played at Palmer and that were in that rugby family, and I feel really close to you guys. So it's like talking to a brother or somebody in my family. So I'm really excited for this show. And as we roll into this, one of my favorite things to do is to hear your story. Your friends, your family, your colleagues, your kids, now your grandkids are going to hear this. So let's tell everybody how you got into this beautiful profession.
So when I was a small child, my mom used to take me to a St. Augustine chiropractor that just retired, Clark Monahan, and went to him for several years in my childhood. And then when I was going to undergraduate school in Miami, Florida, I had a rugby injury. I dislocated my shoulder and went to a Palmer graduate that was friends with my father. The chiropractor's name was Larry Grusky. He was a Palmer grad from like 1981. And I just started following him around the office. He invited me after he helped my shoulder to get better. And now, interesting, I ended up being a specialist in scoliosis. He saw my spine and said, wow, I don't know what to do with that. I had a 68-degree scoliosis. And, one of the things I've searched out in my life is what can we do preventative with these scoliosis? Because a lot of people are scared of them. And he was kind of in that light, but he was a really good chiropractor. And I would follow him around the office. And I'll never forget one day, this patient, he would tell the patient, Jay, your story. And this little girl starts speaking for her mother. And she said, I like Dr. Grusky because my mom loves me again, because the mother had severe migraine headaches, and she would lock herself in the closet to get into a dark, quiet space. Meanwhile, the kid's outside the closet and thinks the mother doesn't love her anymore. So when she started to get adjusted by Dr. Grusky, the migraine stopped. She stopped going in the closet. So she associated Dr. Grusky adjusting her with her mother loving her more. And another patient that came in one day when I was in there had a lot of bowel movement problems, and one of Dr. Gretzky's specialties was SOT, and did a lot of pelvic work, and the woman was able to go to the bathroom again. And it was just like every patient that came in had another story like that. And most of the things they told me about were visceral complaints. And I was just really fascinated by it. I was like, wow, this is not, I mean, this is like everything, and it was just super exciting. And then he recommended that I take a tour of life in Palmer, and I went to both schools, and I just gravitated toward Davenport. And I just felt like with the cold weather and the small town and nothing to do, people were just really focused on chiropractic. And I just had a really good experience. My first tour, I went to a rugby game at Scott County Park, and just really fell in love with it. And, it's been my life passion ever since.
I love, 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 love the story because it breaks the perception that chiropractors only do a couple things, but chiropractors restore life to people. And when you can change somebody's life from having migraine headaches to the point where they're in full function again, that brings people closer, and it's amazing. When I first got into doing the work that we were doing early on, I was doing patient testimonials, and I had a similar case like that where this lady's like, yeah, I take these things and they knock me out, and I have to like lock myself inside of a dark room so I don't see any light. And she's like, since I've been coming to chiropractic, I've been restoring my spine. Now I don't have those anymore, and my life is back. And that's when I knew that there is a bigger story to chiropractic than what everybody else had ever told me. So that's an awesome opener, man. And you mentioned scoliotic and scoliosis. Would you say that that's something that makes you unique in the chiropractic space now?
Well, I always was gravitated toward it because I had a severe scoliosis at Palmer, and I was always gravitated toward the biomechanical techniques, Pedibon, Harrison, CVP. And I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time with those guys. And but they never really got a hold of scoliosis. Like they were really good at smaller subluxations, but not so much scoliosis. And my daughter developed a progressive scoliosis when she was about 12 years old. And I was training with Dr. Fred Schofield, and kind of consulting with him about it. And he had studied under Wogan at Palmer, and I had studied under Wogan. And he's like, man, I'd take her up to see Dennis. And so we went up to the Clear Institute, and she got good results. And then I decided to go through care also as an adult up there. So we had spent several weeks at his clinic as a family, and I just learned a lot. I saw the way he was running things, and I'm like, wow, this is, I really got excited about it. So at the time that this all happened, I had sold a practice and had taken some time off. And I said, I'm going to get certified, and I'm going to open a Clear scoliosis office. That's what I'm going to do. And so we opened up a specific office specifically for Clear. And it's like a combination of all the things I learned in CVP, Pedibon, Pierce, and, combined it into this scoliosis program. And we're also using the Scoli brace. I don't know if you're familiar, a lot of the CVP doctors are using Scoli brace now. So I'm trained in Scoli brace. I've been doing that for about 5 years. And some of the results are just unbelievable. We have a young girl that's in the office now. We just did her 4-month x-ray, and she went from a 34-degree curve to a 17-degree curve.
Wow.
And we really find that if we can get these kids before they hit puberty, we get the best results. And so a lot of the local chiropractors around Florida are finding out about me, and they refer me cases where they just see that something's not right. And like, let's say a 7 to 10-year-old, they get really good results. Adults that have more degenerative scoliosis as they get older with spondylolistheses and lateral listheses, they do really good with the scoliosis care and the bracing also. Their care is more pain-based. A lot of these younger kids, the parents are finding out about the scoliosis, and they're concerned about getting surgery. So they're trying to prevent surgery. As an adult, people are more getting, a lot of injections. Doctors don't really worry about the numbers so much with adults. They're just start doing rhizotomies and injections and, just kind of kill the pain. But we get some really good results in adults. So a lot when you're in our office, scoliosis is 80% more in females. So you'll see a lot of teenage girls and then a lot of women that are like 60, 70 years old is a big part of our scoliosis practice. And then we still have a family practice. And lately we've been seeing a lot of pregnant women and newborns, and I'm also became a grandfather recently. We get a lot of referrals from midwives, and so we see a little bit of everything, but that's probably the gist of our practice. If you were to spend the day there, the kind of people that you would see.
And when it comes to scheduling new patients into your clinic, what have you found to be some of the most effective ways to do that?
Well, I'm sure you guys are very familiar with Dr. Fred Schofield. So I trained with him for many years. So, I know how to attract new patients. But what I have learned is Jimmy Johnson, the former Miami Hurricanes and Dallas Cowboys coach, talked about the flow. And when you get into the flow, there's like an impenetrable force. You can't stop getting the new patients. And I think when people see a high volume office, they're thinking like there's some kind of gimmick going on. How are they doing this? What's this all about? Kind of stuff like that. It's really about passion, somebody getting a confidence in their skill level, and then things just take care of itself from there. But the whole thing is once you get that flow going, you have to keep the flow going. Ride it out as long as you can, because you never know when it's going to be gone. You've got to take advantage of every day, every opportunity, and you'll find that people just gravitate towards you. It's all about results. And people, when they feel that you're coming from the heart, when you're treating them like you're treating your own family, they're going to tell other people about you, and you'll have all the new patient slots filled up.
Double digit new patients every week, right?
Right.
I hear Freddie Schofield echoing that in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit more about you and what you do for, health at the home front and what you do to stay healthy and fit.
Yeah, I was so glad to see that question, because when the pandemic started rolling, my wife loves Joe Mercola, and she was sharing some of his stuff. And I did a couple talks early on. We pulled out Dan Murphy's Spanish flu video and, studying all kind of things. But Mercola, I really like what he have to say, because you hear all these people talk about, are we doing everything we can? These terms where you would see all these signs. Well, what does that mean? Wiping everything down with Lysol. We want to make sure everything we can do, make sure you have your mask on all the time, make sure everything you can do, social distancing. We have to be doing everything that we can do, right? But people don't think about the inside out. And when I first heard about these studies from China, where the people with vitamin D deficiency weren't coming out of the hospital, and the people with good vitamin D levels were coming out of the hospital, I'm like, wow, that is really cool. I mean, like, I believe in nutrition, but that's like pretty concrete. So we started studying, where do we get the best vitamin D? So I settled on Metagenics, and we use their liquid vitamin D. We use their liquid zinc. And I also like their high concentrate turmeric, their curcumin ultra flame. And we also are doing at home Green Chef. And it's kind of like Hello Fresh, but it's organic. You can pick organic paleo. So it's really cool. So my wife's finishing up at the office right now. And then I come home and say, okay, who's going to make dinner? It's like self-explanatory. So one of my kids is making dinner right now, but it's organic and paleo. And we have a big family. We never know how many people are going to be at dinner. Probably tonight we'll have like 6 or 7 people at dinner. But it's super organized. Like, it's organic, it's paleo, prevents you from eating out. And you just click a couple buttons at the beginning of the week, and the stuff drops it straight to you, and you get, one good paleo organic meal. So I'm also exercising vigorously. One of Mercola's things on his list for the pandemic is really intense exercise. So I get up in the morning, I go swim early, hit 30 minutes, wide open in the pool. Then I lift weights for about another 30 minutes. And then I go in the steam room, do some deep breathing exercises, try to really work on expanding the lungs as far as I can, because it's all about the preparation for the pandemic, right? And so what's changed between January 2020 to today? Like, what was different in 2019? Nothing. All these things were important then and they're still important, right? So, but we can visualize, okay, I'm preparing myself for this thing because I know it's coming around. Everybody's going to get it. So what kind of shape am I going to be when it's my turn, right?
Mhm.
So, the vitamin D, the zinc, eating paleo, and then just pushing your body so that you're getting that blood flow and that lung expansion right to the edge of everything that you have, keeping those lungs cleared and pumped, and that blood system pumped. So when you do have the virus, your body's equipped for it and ready to handle it. And then obviously I get adjusted twice a week, and you know, do my scoliosis exercises at least once a week, go through the whole clear routine.
What a wealth of information. I love all that. I'm actually going to look up metagenetics and look up their liquid vitamin D.
Metagenics.
Metagenics.
There's a
And
link on my website.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority podcast training. Let's hustle.
And what are some of your favorite ways to stay engaged with your local community?
I do a lot of volunteer work with church, the sailing community. I'm active in the youth sailing. We have a St. Augustine Race Week coming up, and I help out with the youth regatta. And I have a monthly radio show that I've been doing for many years. And lately I've started to bring on some guests, like last month we had a owner of a natural health food store trying to support other avenues that people have to stay healthy.
I love that. I really do. So if somebody was curious how to start their own radio show, would you recommend them to get radio or jump into podcasting?
I mean, this day and age, it's really hard to say how many viewers people have, So, I like a radio host because they kind of talk you. If you have a good radio host, they know how to pull the information out of you and kind of keep it going, keep it entertaining. And they already have a listener base. Where if you start your own podcast, who's listening?
You, your mom, and your goldfish.
Yeah. So, it's hard to say how many listeners you have. We do get feedback from new patients coming in off the radio show.
Cool.
So, word of thumb is if you get somebody to come in, there was a lot more people listening, So it's been pretty consistent with new patients. So I think there's other people listening, and, we get feedback from when I'm around in the community about the show. So,
oh yeah, I heard you on the radio.
yeah. So I think podcasts would be easier. It's more under your control. I guess the question is, how do you get people to listen to it?
Yeah, I always give people the recommendation. Don't ever think about your first 10, think about your first 100 episodes. And if you have the perseverance to just do it and stay consistent with it and build a brand, eventually your patient base will share it. Eventually your newsletter that you send it out with in your emails at your office will grow eventually. And
Yeah,
you can share it.
we rebroadcast the radio show on Facebook.
Oh, that's awesome.
And occasionally we've done it in YouTube. It's not always that easy to do that, but we've done it a few times.
Yeah, great information, man. I really think that more people need to get out and do more media appearances and to create more content and figure out these to be social on social and to get their information out onto different media channels. So kudos to you for getting onto the radio for a long time.
Yeah.
And so, how do you see chiropractic changing or evolving over the next 20 years?
Man, I'll tell you what, I'm really excited about what Clear does and some of the biomechanical things that we learn about. And I'm really like teaching that to young chiropractors. I feel there was a period in time where the schools kind of got away from teaching about X-ray. I think it's kind of coming the other way a little bit, but I'm really excited about teaching. I've spoken at Palmer, Florida several times. I was up at homecoming in Davenport, and I saw Jim up there in September. And I like being around kids to get a vibe for that. Like it's easy to be negative, but in general, I find the kids are pretty right on. You'll hear people get discouraged about a recent graduate or something. So and so is doing this, but I find that when you really have a heart to heart conversation with most of them, they're pretty, open to old school chiropractic, and it gives me a pretty good feel about it. I mean, having my daughter in the office really keeps things fresh. They don't want an old fogey office, so she had us. There was a recent Palmer, Florida graduate that does the Sandy Spines posters. You guys familiar with that?
I'm not.
So we just got a whole set of those and put them all over the office. They're really cool. Check it out. They're just a modern. It's more like art, and it's a good. The patients are super excited about it. So I think the young people have a lot to offer the profession. So but then I'm only 55. When I look at some of my mentors that are still alive, Dennis Wogan and Fred Schofield, in 20 years, I'm going to be still going at it like Dr. Dennis Wogan is, he still has a lot to share. And I'd like to be in that same situation where I'm still part of it in 20 years, not just like, where is it going to be in 20 years? I'd like to still be in the thick of things.
So, in philosophical standings, I know that you mentioned Wogan and Schofield a few times. Do you have any other mentors or heroes that you've met along the journey? And if there was one chiropractic book, what would you recommend people to read?
Wow. So I was really lucky early on to spend a lot of time with Don and Glenn Harrison, Dan Murphy. I went to a Pedimon seminar out in Tacoma where Vern Pierce and Burl Pedimon were there. So I was with them for 2 weeks, and that was just incredible. All the stuff I got to learn was, I've spent the night at Don Harrison's house and got to see the transformation of him going from a super high volume practice to more of a super detailed technique practice, which is kind of what I've gone through too. I mean, he was seeing so many patients in San Jose that, you couldn't really do high volume corrective care. And it's interesting because he used to take us out to dinner and tell us all these stories, and the patient would get adjusted one time and he would get a letter 3 years later how their cancer was healed. Or, the patient would bring patient wouldn't be able to get pregnant, and the patient would show up at his office 2 years later with the 2-year-old. Thanks for that adjustment. And so it was really interesting early on. Those guys, their practice, they were doing the biomechanics, but not a lot of correction. But they understood that they were developing the theories of all the correction. Now, what Deed is doing in Dennis, it's just like the combination of both. It's super specific and corrective, and it's amazing.
So this takes us to part B. If you could sit down and have coffee or a meal with anybody in history, it doesn't have to be chiropractic related, who would you choose?
Oh, I was thinking chiropractic when I saw that question. I mean, to be honest with you, I can't get enough of talking to Dennis Wogan and Fred Schofield why they're still alive. Not that I don't want to put them in the tombstone or anything, but I really enjoy it. Um, so those were the guys that came to my mind, and I had a really unique experience with Dr. Fred. I saw many chiropractic people speak, but you'd hear them speak, and then you found that you weren't doing anything, you weren't taking any action, and like you were saying, double digit new patients, you have this echoing in your brain. I would see him speak, and then I would have this like chirping that wouldn't go away. And then the next thing you know, I'd find it, I'm doing it. And then things are starting to happen. So, an hour with him one on one, could really change your life forever. And Dennis, what you get from him is just his real love for humanity. It's like he doesn't have scoliosis. He saw a need, and he just has an outpouring of love to help the world with scoliosis. And it's just amazing. So if I could get an hour with both of those guys, I'd be real happy. I'll have to do it.
So I know you kind of already touched on a couple of miracle stories that you've experienced, and I was just curious, are there any more that stand out in your mind
Yeah,
you'd
so
like
there's
to
one
share?
I didn't tell you guys about. This lady, we're in a tourist town and a lot of weddings happen. And so this woman comes in with a bad migraine, and it's a tourist. We're like, I know you're only here for one day, but we're still going to do upper cervical x-rays on you. And I'm only going to adjust your atlas. It won't be a full spine evaluation. And so we do our evaluation and adjust her. And so she comes back the next day and she's like, "What did you guys do to me?" And I'm like, we did the specific x-rays, we adjusted your atlas, let the body start working better. And she said, my headaches went away, but she said, I've been using a catheter for 30 years. And she said, I woke up after that adjustment and I didn't have to use a catheter anymore. That was pretty cool. And recently, we had a 3-year-old come in, and he had never had a bowel movement on his own. He was having to take suppositories, mechanically forced bowel movements for the first 3 years of his life. And so we adjust his atlas, and on the way home, he asked his mom for a glass of water. And then he asked her for an apple, which are two things he never asked for. He really never had much of an appetite. And then later that day, he had his first bowel movement that he ever had as a 3-year-old. Just said, "Hey, I got to go to the bathroom." Goes over to the toilet, goes to the bathroom. So those are two of the favorites. And that guy's on our YouTube. His mom did a nice testimonial with Ezai, and that's on our YouTube channel. The video.
And as we start to wrap up this episode, do you have any websites or online resources you could share with our listeners about you?
My website is drjhartley.com. And there's a lot of resources on there. I was telling you guys, I want to get 1,000 subscribers to my YouTube channel. I'd like to do a health and wellness show on YouTube. So if you guys subscribe, it would help me out. And if you want to learn about the clear method, there is a lot of videos that we've created and put on there.
Do you know your YouTube link or
It's
URL?
on the website.
It's on the website. Okay. Cool.
And if somebody was curious about coming to play rugby at Palmer, how would they do that, and what direction would you give them?
Well, first, we'd like you to have played for either South Africa or New Zealand. And then you get the crazy idea to come be a chiropractor. And Ron O'Brien is the athletic director at Palmer. He's probably the main contact. And the website is palmerrugby.com. And you can see videos, what the team's up to. The women's team actually in May is going to be playing for a national championship. So they're one of the top ranked teams in Division II, and I think they're going to do it. I think May 7th they have a first round game, and then the finals are going to be May 22nd, and we're looking for a national championship.
Well, I remember when that program just started, so congratulations for that.
Yeah, they've got some unbelievable talented players. It's really fun to watch. They're just like 3 or 4 years ago, there was a couple really big teams out of, like Minneapolis that they would lose 55-0 to them. And then I saw them play in September. They beat the same team that 3 years ago was beating them 55-0. They were beating them 55-0. And it was just the transformation over the last couple of years has really been awesome.
And with that, we can close out this episode. Dr. J, I want to thank you for being our guest today. This was a really powerful episode.
Thanks, guys. I want to wish you guys to get down to Florida. Stop messing around on the West Coast, okay?
I will. I'll make it an initiative of mine to get down there to Florida and pay you a visit. I'll be. How far is that from Orlando?
We are 2 hours from Orlando.
Cool. I'll be down there soon. So I'll make sure that I get a rental car and come down there and get some of that clam chowder.
Awesome.
All right, Dr. J, we want you to enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, guys.
Bye for now. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.